a chance to be born. Life, what a beautiful choice.
Sammy, the corporate exec on the next Cheers.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. We begin tonight in Rio de Janeiro, where President Bush did his best to convince the rest of the world, or at least the leaders of 178 nations at the Earth Summit, that not only did he care about the environment, but that they were overlooking what the president said was one of the best environmental records in the world. "I did not come here to apologize," said Mr. Bush. Our White House correspondent, Britt Hume, reports from Brazil tonight that it was not an easy sell.
The president did sign the global warming treaty that had been the focus of so much attention here, and that got him a round of applause from no less an environmentalist than oceanographer Jacques Cousteau. But the treaty had been stripped at U.S. insistence of specific dates and goals for curbing greenhouse gas emissions. And as expected, Mr. Bush refused to sign the so-called biodiversity treaty to protect plant and animal life. He complained the document contained wording that had nothing to do with the treaty's main purpose. But he said the language would have caused American firms who have done pioneering research in the field, on medicine for example, to lose their rights to the resulting technology. In his address to the conference, the president insisted the U.S. is committed to preserving plant and animal life.
Our efforts to protect biodiversity itself will exceed the requirements of the treaty. But that proposed agreement threatens to retard biotechnology and undermine the protection of ideas.
That view has left the U.S. isolated here, but the president said the overall U.S. record on the environment is, quote, second to none.
In the United States, we have the world's tightest air quality standards on cars and factories, the most advanced laws for protecting lands and waters, and the most open processes for public participation.
The president got polite applause from his fellow heads of state, and while some foreign officials have been highly critical of him privately, none of them, not even Fidel Castro, criticized him directly in their public remarks. American environmental activists here in force were not so kind.
Frankly, today, I don't think we heard anything that we haven't heard before from the administration.
His emphasis on U.S. domestic prominence was probably understandable because we have nothing to show in the global arena.
The president, who took a stroll in a rainforest this afternoon, seems to have been caught here between his economic worries about the treaties and his pledge to be the environmental president. Caught, in other words, between the political needs of this election year and the promise he made in the last one. Britt Hume, ABC News, Rio de Janeiro.
This, by the way, is President Bush's 68th birthday. In Washington today, Governor Bill Clinton made it clear that he will continue to attack Mr. Bush's environmental policies as part of his presidential campaign. Today at a news conference, Mr. Clinton said the president was the lone holdout to environmental progress. Here's ABC's Jackie Judd.
Clinton accused President Bush of having blown a great opportunity to lead the world.
He abdicated both national and international leadership on the environment at the very moment when the world was most amenable to following the lead of the United States.
Clinton said Bush was wrong to resist some of the Rio treaties on the basis that cleaning up the environment would cost too many jobs.
The president is out of touch when he suggests international environmental leadership is the enemy of national economic growth.
By Clinton's estimate, the country can now afford the cost of making dirty industries cleaner instead of shutting them down.
The nation, by making proper investments, moving from a defense to a domestic economy, could create more jobs, not fewer jobs.
Clinton concedes that as governor of Arkansas, he occasionally put jobs ahead of environmental protection.
I made the choice from time to time for jobs because my state was a poor one without either enough jobs or enough federal help to clean up the environment.
And the critics fault Clinton for allowing the poultry business and the timber industry to pollute once pristine lakes and rivers in Arkansas. Clinton now admits he made a mistake by creating a false choice between the economy and the environment, a mistake he says that President Bush shouldn't make either. Jackie Judd, ABC News, Washington.
Getting back now to the president's message in Rio, Mr. Bush spoke again today about the need to balance environmental protection with economic growth. Now, there are many at the Earth Summit in Rio who believe that those goals do not have to be mutually exclusive by any means. Here's ABC's Barry Seraphin.
An environmental exposition that coincided with the summit put advanced technology for pollution control and energy efficiency on display. There were U.S. exhibits, but considerably fewer than those offered by Germany and Japan, two countries emerging as leaders in green technology. The Japanese, for example, produced 3/4 of the world's air pollution control units to remove sulfur dioxide from factory emissions. The global market for such technology is said to be worth $200 to $400 billion a year. And the Japanese government has a long-term plan with industry to dominate that market.
They're going to sell products around the world and have a competitive edge. And the folks that are there for it first with that early market share are going to be the folks that will see their markets grow.
The United States risks falling behind even in the field President Bush today vowed to protect: biotechnology, the science of creating products from the genes of rare species.
We need to approach it with the same levels of intensity, dedication, and investment that we approached the space race in the 1960s, if we really are going to keep a step ahead of the game.
Many here at the summit believe the United States is increasingly falling a step behind countries like Germany and Japan, which, unlike the U.S., see environmental problems as opportunities to make money and create jobs instead of obstacles. Barry Seraphin, ABC News, Rio de Janeiro.
Finally, on this subject today, there was an environmental ruling at the Supreme Court. The court has limited the right of environmentalists to challenge government-funded projects that allegedly threaten endangered species. The court says the individuals suing must be able to prove that they themselves were injured by the projects. In a moment, Vice President Quayle takes a shot at Ross Perot, a town in Oregon, and its new law which blocks officials from acting on complaints of discrimination by gays and lesbians. And our person of the week, sharing the wealth.
Good luck up there today.
I don't need it.
What's wrong?
What if my diarrhea comes back?
Relax. You took my Imodium AD caplets.
Just one dose. I usually take the pink stuff 2 or 3 times.
Imodium AD is much better.
Imodium AD caplets are so effective, they often work in one dose, instead of dose after dose after dose like the pink stuff.
Hello? Hi, hon. I feel great.
Imodium AD for diarrhea, the choice for one-dose relief.
Now, first-time buyers can get up to $900 in additional savings on new Jeep Wranglers.
There was a Republican broadside today at a presidential opponent. President Bush has said he's not ready to attack H. Ross Perot, but he doesn't mind if others in his administration have a go. Vice President Quayle had a go today. Here's ABC's Cokie Roberts.
In a long-planned speech on the deadlocked government you get with a Republican president, Democratic Congress, Quayle inserted a section on the man who's made gridlock in Washington his central campaign theme.
Electing Ross Perot wouldn't fix the deadlock between the elected branches. It would make things worse.
It's the types of voters supporting Perot that has Republicans worried. Polls show him doing best among men, the middle-aged, and the wealthy, a pretty good description of the strongest Republican voters. They seem to believe Perot's claim that he can get things done. Today, Quayle said the Texas billionaire might be willing to spend some money, but other than that, he was all talk, no action.
Now, I'd like to say talk is cheap, but somehow that doesn't capture the spirit of the Perot campaign.
Quayle's task with this conservative group to convince them that Perot is not one of them. With these lawyers, Quayle accused Perot of showing disrespect for the Constitution. He quoted a Perot speech where he said Japan and Germany are winning because they have modern constitutions.
It would be a serious mistake to replace a genuine statesman with a temperamental tycoon who has contempt for the Constitution of the United States.
The vice president's trying to calm Republican fears that Perot will grow too strong. Quayle's going on the attack early
and most likely often. Cokie Roberts, ABC News, Washington.
In economic news, there was some good news about inflation today. The government says that consumer prices rose only 0.1% last month. That is the best showing in 4 months, and a drop in food prices helped offset an increase in energy costs. On Wall Street today, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained just under 3 points to close at 3354. The trading was moderate. For the week, the industrials lost more than 44 points. To California. The people of South Central Los Angeles are still facing the challenge of rebuilding their community after the riots. It's going to take a lot of work, as everybody knows, and create a lot of opportunity for the rebuilders. Some people in the community are complaining loudly that they are being denied an important opportunity. Here's ABC's Brian Rooney.
In a tumultuous meeting, the California Insurance Commissioner heard complaints from black contractors and leaders who say blacks can't get the jobs rebuilding riot-damaged Los Angeles. In a dramatic gesture, community activist Danny Bakewell left the meeting and went right next door, where his protest shut down a construction site that had a Korean supervisor and all Hispanic workers.
You can't work if we can't work. You cannot come in this community and have a job of this magnitude going on, and you have no black people.
No black. Congresswoman Maxine Waters was there and approved.
Let me tell you, this is political empowerment. Right on, right on. This is how you have to do it.
The contracts for clearing and building are just being let, and there are no records kept on jobs going to non-black contractors. But Bakewell and some black contractors in South Central Los Angeles say most of the business goes to outsiders.
I would venture to say 30–40% of the jobs right now have been gone, have been let. Contracts actually signed, people working from outside of the area.
The insurance company, in many cases, has referral relationships that often don't include minority contractors. So the deal's done before it ever hits the streets, if you will, in South Central L.A.
Some black contractors say they are doing fine. You just have to know how to get work.
I just went out and did it. And really, that's the bottom line.
Bakewell says it's not so easy. He goes by what he sees. When he sees job sites that do not have black contractors and workers, he says he will shut them down. Brian Rooney, ABC News, Los Angeles.
We'll have more news in just a moment.
Flakes? What can I say? I mean, they look kind of stupid just sitting there. Lights out, nobody's home. I mean, look, there's no fruit, there's no raisins, there's nothing in here. There's something about this. It's kind of simple. It's really crunchy. You know, I like them.
Kellogg's Cornflakes.
Kellogg's Cornflakes? Cool.
Taste them again for the first time.
You probably think the best American car value is some little econo-box you have to settle for, right? Nope. It's a Buick. The luxurious Buick Park Avenue. That's according to the Complete Car Cost Guide. They calculated the 5-year cost of depreciation, financing, insurance, fuel, maintenance, and repairs, and found that Park Avenue is the best American car value. For a free reprint from the Complete Car Cost Guide, call 1-800-4-BUICK.
Don't get hit by an annual fee. Carry the card that doesn't charge one. And keep yourself out of the hole. It pays to discover.
You make me feel so young.
Promise Extra Light Spread. Half the saturated fat and calories of margarine and a taste you'll enjoy with all your heart.
You make me feel so young.
Now Promise Extra Light in sticks. Get Heart Smart.
In Oregon this weekend, the city of Springfield finds itself in the center of a fight over civil rights. On Monday, a new law takes effect in Springfield that will bar the city from protecting homosexuals against discrimination. An organizer for the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force calls it the testing ground for hate initiatives all across the country. Here's ABC's Tom Foreman.
Keep on walking forward.
On a rural highway near the Oregon coast, gays and lesbians are marching to the state capitol, protesting what their fellow citizens have done.
How dare they do this in my state? I live here, and I am going to continue to live here. I am not going to let this happen in my community.
What happened was that voters in the town of Springfield decided to make it illegal for officials to act on complaints from homosexuals about discrimination. The measure was promoted by the Oregon Citizens Alliance.
We did not do anything to illegalize homosexuality. We have not taken any of their rights away. We've just said that you should not have special rights based on how you have sex.
But since the measure passed, this state gay rights office was vandalized, and homosexuals say personal attacks on them have increased.
My partner's been harassed 3 times. She's a wheelchair user and was spit on. In the city itself, we don't feel safe now, and we did feel safe before.
Adding to the tension is an even tougher statewide initiative to be voted on this fall. If approved, it would force the state government to recognize homosexuality as wrong, abnormal, and perverse. State schools would have to teach that point of view. Civil rights groups plan to challenge the Oregon Citizens Alliance, the OCA, in court.
What the OCA is fighting for at the bottom is the right to discriminate.
We have to live here. We should have a say over what happens in our communities.
For now, homosexuals here will have to take complaints of discrimination to the state or federal level and hope someone there will listen. Tom Foreman, ABC News, Springfield, Oregon.
Some of the overseas news now. There is news about American prisoners of war today, news from Russia. Russia's President Boris Yeltsin says that during the 1950s, 12 Americans were shot down while flying their U-2 spy planes, and they were then put in Soviet prisons or in psychiatric hospitals. The then leaders of the then Soviet Union always denied it. It is still not known precisely what became of the Americans who were shot down. The Russian Foreign Minister, Andrei Kozyrov, and Secretary of State Baker were in London today trying to complete an agreement which would make significant new reductions in the American and Russian long-range nuclear arsenals. They say they have almost reached agreement. In our next segment, the Israeli elections and the Begin factor.
Things are different. The new Pontiac Grand Am sports sedan proves it. Things are better because its new overhead cam engine gives you more than outstanding power. It gives you better mileage than Accord or Camry for a whole lot less. In back, Consumers Digest named Grand Am a Best Buy. Pontiac Grand Am, a new kind of driving excitement.
Last time I stained my house with that other brand. This time, I'm using Thompson stain.
Only Thompson's House Index stain contains Thompson's water seal. It waterproofs better than even the leading brand's premium stain.
Now that's beautiful protection.
Thompson stain.
I love performing, though it's a lot more fun with an audience. I love sweet things, too, like Sunsweet pitted prunes. They're so tasty and fat-free. It's love, all right. It's Sunsweet.
Four-star lighting wasn't saving what they'd hoped since leaving AT&T. Trefethen Vineyards was having trouble getting long-distance calls through on the first try, so they've come back to AT&T, and we want you back. Come back with AT&T Partners in Business. AT&T Quality at 20% discounts to the 20 AT&T numbers you choose, or the area code you call most. We want you back. Call 1-800-222-0400.
Do you really think naphtha can be replaced with a non-flammable solvent?
In 1929, she was the only woman and the only PhD chemist in the physics lab. But over the years, she was responsible for 29 different patents.
Hello, I'm Sylvia Stacer.
Dr. Stacer created a new career path for women and for her company. The same company that leads the nation in patents granted to women over the last decade. We think Dr. Stacer would be pleased.
Thou lets you do great things.
In southern Lebanon today, there was more fighting between Israeli troops who occupy a 9-mile strip of southern Lebanon and members of the Islamic fundamentalist militia Hezbollah. 2 militiamen were killed and 2 Israeli soldiers were wounded. There's an Israeli election in less than 2 weeks that is of considerable interest in the United States. The latest polls out today show the opposition Labour Party and the ruling Likud coalition are running about even. Likud has led Israel for most of the last 15 years, ever since the late Menachem Begin won his first election and became prime minister. But by the look of this campaign, you might think that Mr. Begin is back. ABC's Dean Reynolds is in Tel Aviv.
The fact that Menachem Begin has been dead for 3 months has not stopped his old political party from trying to keep him alive in the minds of Israeli voters. Begin is on television repeatedly in political commercials, and his posters are popping up at every Likud party rally, where speakers resurrect his record and try to associate themselves with his legend. It is not hard to see why.
He had that kind of charisma that people listened to him and were moved emotionally.
Few would say the same thing about Begin's Likud party successor, Itzhak Shamir, whose likeness comes in second even at his own rallies. Shamir's popularity is suffering with unemployment at a 20-year high and the Middle East peace process going nowhere fast. His colleagues are worried that Shamir may drag them all down to defeat.
They believe that perhaps Shamir is not good enough.
Enter Menachem Begin's 48-year-old son, Benny, a geologist by trade who came late to politics. He looks, sounds, and thinks like his illustrious father, and is almost as popular. So much so that many in the Likud wish he and not Mr. Shamir was heading their ticket. And for that reason, Begin the Younger has been put in as many Likud advertisements as possible. But Benny Begin is ambivalent about the political life his party has prepared for him.
Had my name been different, I would have been today still a geologist. They convinced me that it's worthwhile trying, and I came. I mobilized. In American terms, I was drafted, and here I am until I'm released.
That won't happen anytime soon. His party sees the Begin magic as its best political weapon, and Benny is the only Begin still around. Dean Reynolds, ABC News, Tel Aviv.
We'll be back in just a moment.
World News Tonight with Peter Jennings and the Person of the Week are brought to you by Jeep.
Now, first-time buyers can get up to $900 in additional savings on new Jeep Wranglers.
Minwax is proud to announce a new addition to the family, new polycrylic protective finish. Unlike ordinary finishes, polycrylic has no strong odors, and it dries to a beautiful crystal clear finish in no time at all. It even cleans up with water. New Minwax polycrylic. After all, a new beginning deserves a beautiful new finish. New Minwax polycrylic, a new way to keep wood beautiful.
I put off seeing my doctor because I was worried about needing surgery for my hemorrhoids. The pain, itching, and burning were awful. The doctor said my hemorrhoids weren't serious. I didn't need surgery. He told me it was time I started using Preparation H.
Preparation H cream helps shrink swelling of inflamed hemorrhoidal tissues and often relieves pain, itching, and burning for hours.
What a difference Preparation H cream makes.
Doctor recommended Preparation H.
And now, try alcohol-free Preparation H cleansing tissues.
Warning, women, if you think you can't have a heart attack, you're wrong, and your doctors may be ignoring the symptoms. Surprising facts about women and heart disease. Plus, are Charles and Diana headed for divorce? A 2020 view of the Royals on the Rocks, tonight.
Finally, this evening, our Person of the Week. This week, we have chosen a man, and his wife as well, for without his wife, he might not have become involved, who has proved the point again that if you want to be involved, you can. And if you try to make a difference, you may. This is a man who saw a need and decided he had to do something.
Without education, we're nothing. Without education, we're still slaves. The only way you can lift the bondage is to free them with the gift of love. And that gift of love is reading and writing and arithmetic and science. That's the only way. There is no other way.
Thank you very much for helping us.
Frank Clark is a retired broadcasting executive who has found a way to help educate some children badly in need of help.
And they appreciate it down in Mississippi.
Yesterday morning, thanks to Clark, a truck backed up to Ashland High School in Benton County, Mississippi, one of the poorest school districts anywhere in the country. students and teachers began to unload books and desks and typewriters and computers, most of which has been missing for many students here in a state that ranks near the bottom in spending on education and in student test scores.
We have a duty and responsibility to these children to protect them, to guide them, to nurture them, and to make them wonderful human beings. And we have abdicated that responsibility.
Mr. Clark has seen a need in this county, and he has helped us out in a time that we needed help.
You know, I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody else around here do too, because, you know, he really didn't have to do it.
Last night in Michigan, Frank and his wife Faye attended their own granddaughter's high school graduation. It was Faye, who's an executive with the Cincinnati Food Distribution Company that sells food to Mississippi schools, who told Frank about the horrible conditions at some of the school districts she deals with. Frank went down to Mississippi and to Alabama to see for himself.
I saw children in school buildings that in the North would have been condemned. I saw inadequate classroom facilities. I saw some tragedy. I decided that we had to do something, no matter what. That we had to try, and we should just get in and do it.
Are we making a dent?
And so last January, Frank Clark began canvassing more well-to-do school districts in the North, asking for any school supplies they could spare or that were no longer needed. Benton Harbor, Michigan, for one, came through in a big way.
Frank's one of those kind of people that you just can't refuse. If we can help him to make a dream for someone else, another child, to learn and open that book for the first time, then we're going to do that.
Well, my education is so far superior to these children, it saddens me to think of it.
Boy, that bottom one is pretty heavy.
Frank Clark was born in Boston and raised by his grandparents in Jamaica in the West Indies. He went to Boston University in San Francisco State. As he helped to load the truck in Michigan this week, he talked about the impact of his own education.
Oh! Oh, my God!
It's the great equalizer.
There we go.
It makes me feel that I am equal with the world. And whatever my role in life, whether I'm a street sweeper or a garbage collector or a broadcaster or a teacher, it makes me feel great about myself because I know I've done the best that I could do educationally.
Clark was a very successful radio and television executive. His retirement could have been a lot different.
I now devote 100% of my time to the project. It's better than playing tennis and playing with my computer. I'd like to spend the rest of my life doing this. I could die doing this and be very happy.
And so Frank Clark, who is 65 now, will be turning up at school board meetings around the country, asking others to help him help less fortunate children. Watch for him.
You know, we talk too much and we do too little. We need to do a lot and talk less.
Which is why we choose Frank Clark. He and his wife were so struck by what they first saw in the South that they were moved to tears. They say there's no time for tears any longer. There's too much work to be done. That's our report on World News Tonight. I'm Peter Jennings. We hope you have a good weekend. Good night.
This has been a presentation of ABC News. More Americans get their news from ABC News than from any other source.
Sunday, the Judith Krantz novel that started it all. What she had, everyone wanted. What she wanted, she always got.
I want to be your mistress.
I adore you. No one compares to you.
Are you having an affair with her?
Lindsay Wagner, Barry Bostwick, and Ephraim Zimbalist Jr. Sunday, Judith Krantz's Scruples.
Amazing Blue Star ointment stops itching fast. Jock itch, ringworm, psoriasis, athlete's foot, and removes corns and calluses. Blue Star ointment, the one that's guaranteed. Ask for it.
The year Gatorade came out, linemen moved a little slower. Runners were lonelier, and the only people who worked out were on TV. Sports have changed. So change your sports drink to All Sport. It's got a specially advanced formula. It's got the optimal balance of